and keep an eye on it so you stop when one episode ends and you don't run out of tape in the middle of the next one. It was definitely tedious stuff, but I saw it as being asked to watch a TV show about the history of music. That was right up my alley. I didn't mind doing it at all, and when it was over, she was so grateful she asked, "What can I do for you?" "Well," I answered, "I'd love to have an internship at WLIR." At the beginning of my sophomore year in 1980, I showed up at the WLIR office for an interview. The fact that it was in the slum of Hempstead didn't deter me. I couldn't believe I was inside a professional radio studio, seeing it all firsthand. The guy I listened to every morning, Steve North, was just finishing a news report. He was only about 6 or 7 years older than me, but he might as well have been Edward R. Murrow. We were in the same studio, but the difference between us was immense. He was on air and getting paid. I was an amateur. He was comfortable. I was quivering behind a mustache. He had on a suit and a tie. I wore the nicest outfit I had. A loud blue and red striped button-down shirt that I bought at Just Shirts in the Roosevelt Field Mall, a skinny tie that looked like something I stole from the band The Knack, a pair of beige slacks I picked out at Sid's Pants, which was right next to Just Shirts, and a snappy pair of Capezios. The first question he asked me was, "Do you smoke?" Did he smell my breath? This was a newsroom with young journalists. I thought everyone smoked. I did, so I told him. Well, that will not be accepted. I made a mental note. Right after that, we started talking about news and its value and other high-minded philosophies of journalism. The conversation turned to Geraldo Rivera and his late-night show, Good Night America. Steve had been a producer on the show. I told him my favorite segment was when Geraldo had on Jack Ruby's sister and Lee Harvey Oswald's widow, and they got into a knockdown, drag-out fight on the air. I couldn't get over that. Seeing people fighting like that on TV was crazy to me. Turned out Steve produced that piece. I was hired that day. I had to be in the office twice a week by 6 a.m. 3 weeks after starting, my car radio was jacked from the LIR lot, but that didn't slow me down. I'd get there before the sun came up. Initially, my principal job was called sledding. This was long before everyone had a computer, but slightly after stone tablets. Reporters couldn't Google to find information. They needed interns. That was me. The station subscribed to all the major local papers. Every day I had to go through the papers and clip the most important features. Along the wall were packets of the biggest stories happening at the time, and each day we added the new articles. That way, if someone was working on a piece about, say, Agent Orange, they could go to the packet, flip through all the stories, and be up to speed. Steve was very methodical and precise. When he told you how to do something, he wanted you to do it his way from then on. I did the sledding job well. I also learned a valuable lesson. If you do shitty tasks well and without attitude, someone will give you better stuff to do. I hung around Steve as much as I could, watching as he did interviews on the phone, pulled articles from the sledding files, edited his pieces, and read newscasts out loud to himself before going on the air. The politics of the place made me chuckle sometimes. All the stories my brother Anthony warned me about when he was rebelling against my father were being played out and reported every day. About a month into the gig, Steve sent me out on assignment. Nassau Community College was holding a Handy-Capable Day to raise awareness for handicapped people. It wasn't political intrigue, but it got me out of the office. He threw me a tape recorder and said, "Go." What do I do?" I asked. "Talk to people. Ask them why they're there and what they hope to achieve," he said. So I went down there and walked around all the different booths and interviewed people. I would start off asking everyone, "Are you having a good time?" Then I'd launch into an interview. I thought I got some good stuff. People were really excited about Handy-Capable Day. I got back to the studio and gave Steve the tape. He popped it into a deck, started listening, and 10 seconds in, paused it. "First tip," he said, "never ask a yes or no question." He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to give me the assignment, listen to the tape with me, or give me any criticism at all. He didn't really have to acknowledge I existed for any reason other than cutting out newspaper articles and making his job easier. But he did all of that. And when we were done going through the interviews, he cut 10 seconds of tape, put it into his broadcast for the day, and introduced it this way. WLIR's Gary Dell'Abate was there and asked people what they thought of the event. Holy shit! That broadcast ran 6 times throughout the day. I went to work at the kennel the next day and people said to me, "Hey, I heard your name on the radio." That was it. My first taste of countywide fame. I was a month into my internship and my name was already broadcast on the station all my friends listened to. After that, Steve kept throwing me the recorder. He knew I was a huge sports fan. He couldn't have cared less, and not too long after my handy-capable success, he asked me if I wanted to interview Rick Cerrone, the Yankees catcher who was doing an autograph session at a mall in Hicksville. It couldn't have been more perfect for me. While my fandom had expanded to the Jets and the Islanders, the Mets and baseball were still my true loves. They were everything the Yankees were not. Upstarts, scrappy, abused, laughed at. Clearly, I could identify with this team. Plus, my dad loved the Mets, and I idolized my dad. Every year, he'd take my brothers and me to a game for a Dell'Abate boys' day out. At night, he and I would watch the Mets together. He used to joke that on his third try, he got it right and had a boy who was a sports fan. It was something only he and I could share. In 1980, the Mets were in the midst of a particularly bad run. They won the World Series in 1969, but during a stint from the mid to late 70s, they finished above 500 just twice. And in 1980, they were in the middle of 7 straight seasons with less than 70 wins. They were easily the worst team in baseball. Meanwhile, those damn Yankees were the best. In 1980, they'd won 103 games. But the good news for me was that right before my interview with Cerrone, the Yankees had lost the pennant to the Royals. In fact, they didn't just lose, they were swept by a team that had won 6 fewer games. By all accounts, their season was a failure, no matter how many games the team won during the regular season. Now their catcher was signing autographs, and our news director asked me if I wanted to go talk to him. Hell yeah, I wanted to talk to him. The Met fan in me couldn't wait to rub his nose in it. At first, I thought it would be an easy gig. I figured since Steve asked me, it had all been set up, and I would just arrive, interview Cerrone, and then come back with the tape. Cerrone was famous, and the Yankees were important. He wouldn't leave something like this to chance with an intern. Actually, he would. Steve told me to find out who was in charge when I arrived at the mall, show them the tape recorder, explain that I worked with WLIR, and ask if Cerrone would talk to me. It would be just that easy. As I approached the autograph stand, I saw, of course, that Cerrone was surrounded by hundreds of people. I fought my way through the crowd with a microphone in one hand and the tape recorder dangling from a strap that hung around my neck. It was October, and the equipment, paired with my fledgling mustache and John Oates hair, made me look like someone who was trying out a Halloween costume as an early 80s rocker. As I was pleading my case with the woman running the event, Cerrone caught a couple of sentences of our exchange and said, "Sure, I'll talk to you as soon as this is over." So I stepped off to the side to wait my turn. I started testing my tape recorder to make sure it worked. I did it a half a dozen times. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Then I'd stop, rewind, play it back, and do it again. I didn't want to blow this opportunity. I wasn't going to ask yes or no questions, and I wasn't going to let a technical snafu get in the way either.